Hi, everybody. My name is Jamil, and I'm an addict. Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank Allah for allowing me to be here. I'd like to thank the Portland, Oregon Convention Committee for asking me to come from New York, and I bring you greetings from New York, love and respect. I'd like to thank them for asking me to come here and share whatever hope, strength, and experience that they think I might have. And like I was saying on the plane, I'll be doggone. I never thought I'd be in Oregon. Yeah, but I'm filled with so much emotion right now. People have been beautiful this weekend, and I've met a lot of people, new faces, people that I've known, and people have come up to me and said all kind of nice things to me, and that has really made me feel really great, and I just want to share some gratitude, and I don't want anyone to be offended by the way I call my God or who I call my God, I don't mean to offend anyone with that. I don't mean to be in breach of any traditions of Narcotics Anonymous, because I love Narcotics Anonymous with all my heart, but I have to remember, and I have to give thanks to the one who remembered me. And then he said to me, you remember me and I'll remember you. So I thank him all the time, first and foremost. You see, because I'm a dope fiend, man. He remembered me when I was just full of characteristics, but had no character at all. I was all kind of people, see. See, he remembered me when I was the lowest of lows. And I often say that my higher power does his best work in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I was born, to a Baptist family, and we all come from different walks of life, but we can all relate to a home that has a God in it, and I might relate to mine differently now, you see, but I have strong identification with my upbringing. See, because I used to hear my mother sing songs like, I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. I used to hear her sing songs like that. My father used to sing songs like, the storm is passing over. And I used to always, what are you talking about? The storm is passing. What storm? And I used to always wonder what my mother talking about, what she free of, and we never talk. I don't know, my mother's history, as far as being any kind of substance abuse or anything like that, but I imagine something was going on in her life that she was glad to be free of, and I could relate to that, and I could relate to songs like the Whining Boys when they sing, millions didn't make it, but I was one of the ones who did, and when I reflect on that, I am so grateful, you see, because when I talk about my father singing, the storm is passing over, I know something about the storm now that he was talking about. You see, because I was in the midst of the storm, and I'm grateful for Narcotics Anonymous. I'm grateful, you see, because early on, Narcotics Anonymous taught me that there's a difference between being stuck in shit and going through shit. See, they told me about backbone. They told me about the resiliency that it gives you by incorporating these spiritual principles into your program. It makes you like the palm trees in Florida. So when the storm comes and the palm trees bend way over and touch the ground, but when the storm's over, they stand straight up. They told me about standing up for something instead of falling for everything. You know, I'm really, really grateful. Because I'm talking about the eye of the storm. You see, I like war movies. I love war movies. You know, and I like those movies when guys be in basic training. You know, basic training be rough, man. Guys be crying and shit, writing home to mama. Wish I hadn't did this. I wish I hadn't joined up in this here, man. Sergeant is going crazy and stuff, you know. But it reminds me of what they told me when I came into Narcotics Anonymous. Sit up front. Take the cotton out of your ears, learn to listen and listen to learn. You know what I'm saying? Because in those war movies, guys might not appreciate basic training until they get into actual combat. You see, when the enemy find out that there's a weakness in your ranks, something happened that you might be a little weak now, so they gonna put, they call it an onslaught. The captain called everybody around and said, man, we in trouble. They fixing to send out everything against us. You know, and I felt this, I identified with this, and I'm talking about it didn't come in the first year of my recovery. It didn't come like in the 5th year. It didn't come in the 6th year. It didn't come in the 10th. But in the 11th year of my recovery, the onslaught came, and I found myself saying, oh Allah, the enemy is at the gate. And I don't know what to do. You see, because April 1st, my wife passed away. You know, my partner. And it was devastating. Then 2 weeks after that, my kidneys failed. And I was in surgery, you know, and ended up on dialysis. You know, and I wish I could stand there and say something profound. Like I said 17 prayers or something like that and everything was cool. You know, like I talked to some guru or something like that. But that wasn't what it was. You see, because in the trenches, when those guys be in those trenches, they don't remember no prayers. The prayers don't be coming. They remember what they learned in basic training. You see, and that's what held me up. It wasn't nothing heavy. But it was the simplicity of Narcotics Anonymous. It was the coming to the rooms and sitting up front. You know, those guys, you know, I envy those guys who go to Jack LaLanne and those spas and get built big diesel and stuff like that. I never could get with it. I do 10 push-ups, I'm in the mirror for a month. Trying to see some definition, you know? That's far as I can go, you know? But I understand about working out and being fit and getting in shape. And I got in shape right here in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. I come in every day, you know, and and a lot of brothers I know, who are the same faith that I am, you know, and I go to the mosque and things like that, you know, and I talk to them. A lot of brothers, they got substance abuse problems, you know, I mean, dope fiends, you know, and they be saying, well, man, you know, if you got Allah, why do you go to the meetings and stuff like that? I said, brother, let me tell you something. I said, when I was at my lowest, when I was full of despair and bewilderment, and I called on my God and asked him, what should I do? He said, go to NA. So I'm in NA to stay. You know, I don't care about what you're doing out there. You got some kind of a program, that's you. That's fine with you, with me. But I'm staying right here in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. You know, because, you know, I remember where I come from. I'm an old dope fiend. Old dope fiend. I ain't telling how old dope fiend I am. But I'm an old dope fiend. You know, a dinosaur. You know, and as I look out through the crowd, I see dinosaurs. And I see dinosaurs. And I say that the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous for the dinosaurs like Jurassic Park. You see, because in the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous, the only place that you can find a dinosaur looking good. Look preserved, still moving around, got life, be viral. Them other guys is petrified in the museum, you know? Yeah, it's good to reflect and remember. You know, I remember the shame, man, you know? I remember being a prisoner. You know, that's why I say I relate to my mother singing about, I sing because I'm happy, and I sing because I'm free. You see, because I remember, man, when I came into the rooms in Narcotics Anonymous, and I looked at the third tradition and said the only requirement for membership was the desire to stop using. I said, man, I had that desire a long time ago. You know, I used out there for like 25 years, you know, and I didn't do no whole lot of penitentiary time. You know, I did my little bids and things like that, but I suffered, man, a long time out there, you know, and then I heard people reading the preamble, and they said just as freedom for the individual springs from the steps. And I said, freedom. How I long for freedom, you know, because I was a prisoner of my own mind, condemned by guilt. You know, and a lot of my addiction was because I was so ashamed of what I had done. And the only thing that could erase and ease the pain was to get high and to stay high. Then I came in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and y'all said that there was a chance for me. You know, and I was reading something about Michelangelo. Michelangelo said he looked at the marble and he saw an angel and he decided he'd chisel him out, you know, and I'm really glad for the opportunity to reflect on my life, you know, because I need to remember, you see, because my disease talks to me and it sounds like me, you know. My disease eased up to me and he said, you know, Jamil, you've been dealing with life on life terms for a long time now. Yeah, you deserve a hit. You know, for the life of me, I don't know if I got a hit. You know, because I'm BC, you know, I got in here before crack. You know? So crack ain't in my story, so this qualification might be a little long. But dope fiend qualification is long, boy, you know, as opposed to a crack story. You know? When I came around, boy, you know, like, guys would like be talking about I used for 25 years and I had endocarditis and I had this and I had that, and they'd be going on and on, had eras they'd be going through. You know, and then somebody come up and said, I started using crack in November. You know, and I say, boy, man, I'm glad I got in when I did. You know, but you know, like I said, I'm an old fiend. You know, I was born in Brooklyn. You know, and early on, my family moved to Queens. I was born to a Baptist family. You know, my father was a Baptist minister, had his little storefront church. You know, my mother was his right arm. She used to be in the kitchen, you know, and she used to do that household domestic work, you know. My father used to work on the railroad and stuff like that, you know. And when I came into Narcotics Anonymous, you know, I was like identifying. And people was telling stories about why they started using, you know, whatever rationale they was coming up with, you know, and I couldn't get with it, you know, because my family was, I thought, fairly functional. Even though my father was a tyrant. My father didn't listen to nothing. It was everything he said do. He would like go hunting. You know, or every holiday he go hunting, Thanksgiving, Christmas. But he had hunting boots. They came up to his knees, and they had them rawhide shoelaces in them. And he'd buy 3, 4 pair of those and make a big braid, and hang that on a nail in the kitchen. It was like illuminate the whole side of the house, and like if you did anything, there was no excuses. My father would go in the room there, boy, I'll be in there in a minute, and he would give me and my sister terrible beatings, and me and my sister, we used to talk about, different things, like, we got to get out of here, My sister, she had to sing Amazing Grace every Sunday. We couldn't like stay home if we were sick. He was telling us what they telling us now, sit up front. Go to church and sit up front, and it would be like snowstorms, like it would be like warnings like over the news, like, don't travel, and people would be staying on their jobs, My father would come home, me and my sister said, oh man, it was so bad. My father used to be us, man, like I contemplated suicide one time. And we was living in Brooklyn at this time, and a big 4-story building, and I was up in the 4th floor window, contemplating jumping. And who drove up? My father. He drive up, and I said, oh no, and I stepped out of the window, he came upstairs, he said, oh, you want to commit suicide, huh? He said, go in there in the room, man, I'll be in there in a minute. I said, damn, I should have jumped, man, and the beatings like continued, man, and back in the days, man, that we had the gangs, and we had like a boxing team, and we had one like a Parks to Park championship, and fellas went out to celebrate. So my father asked my father, can I hang you? He said, yeah. Well, he gave me a ridiculous curfew, like being about 10, So I went out, and I came in at about 3, and I ain't had no key. I come out, ring the bell, he answered the door. He said, oh boy, you think you grown now, huh? Go in the room there, I'll be in there in a minute. But I said, nah, Dad, that's over. I said, nah, that's over, man, And but I'm just saying this was the point of my rebellion. You see, because I rebelled against everything he stood for at this time, And one morning, instead of going to church, one Sunday morning, instead of going to church, summertime, I went to the park. I was on my way to the park, and I got halfway to the park, about a block away, and I could smell the reefer smoke. I heard the Temptations, Cloud 9, and went up to the park, man. I got into the park, looked over in the park, man, and them guys was in there. My role models had them long shoes on, and they had them sharkskin pants on, and they had those knit shirts, and those big hats, and their pockets was bulging, and they was around the kiddie pool. You all right? They was around the kiddie pool, and they was playing CeeLo and craps, and I said, man, look here, man. I said, the pearly gates my father been preaching about. They right down the block, man, And man, I just fell in love with everything, man. And what caught me was those guys, the older guys was like, had a little spot over on the other side of the park there, and it was like nodding. And it just fascinated me the way they could nod, talk like nod out, wake up, be on the same sentence and shit like that. I said, man, well, I gotta be down with this, man, you know. So at the time, the mother of my kids was having our first child, and shortly after that, she was having our second child. And our mother threatened us, said we had to get married. So I did the only chivalrous thing a man could do. I dropped out of school, got a job, you know. But what this job afforded me was the opportunity to go down to Stacey Adams down there on Broadway. And I got a pair of them long shoes, you know, and I went down to this spot called Worthmore and got me some shark skin pants. And then I got me, went down to Phil Cronfield's and Layton's and all them joints, man, picked me up a couple of shirts. And I came back, you know, and, you know, we had been drinking wine. You know, we used to smoke reefer back then, you know, like big fat bags of reefer then. You used to get then, you know, like bag of reefer, get that whole section over there high. You know, we used to sit down, smoke reefer from 12 to 12, laughing and lying. That's all. That's all we do was just smoke reefer and laughing and lying, man, you know, having fun. You know, and then I would always be last to know what was going on, but I had a partner. And he eased up to me and said, we ain't doing that no more. He said, we sniffing this doogie. And man, I got me a bag of that doogie, which was heroin. I got me a bag of that doogie at the time, which was $2 a bag. And I went home and I got dressed, and I sniffed the doogie, and I went back to the park. And I was in love, man. I was in love. You know, and the only thing I didn't like about the doogie was that vomiting. You know, because I wake up, have spots and shit all over my shoes and, you know, and my pants and all that, you know. And, you know, and it just was like started on weekends. Then weekends turned into weekends and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, then all week. Then lunchtime, then after work, you know, first thing in the morning, you know, and then I was going somewhere, and one of the old timers saw me, and he said, look how blood, you getting a chippy. And I said, chippy? You know, and then, you know, it seemed like the guys who would tell you that would be greasy guys, you know, they'd be worn out, you know. And I said, yeah, well, I ain't gonna be like him. You know, but I just said, I'm gonna cool out, you know, and I tried to stop, and I went home, and I thought I had the flu. You know, white shit coming out my nose, you know, and sweating, cold sweats, you know. So I went to the doctor. In the middle of the examination, the doctor took off his stethoscope and he said, you got to leave here. He said, because you're in withdrawal and we don't treat addicts. It's fine with me. You know, I left and went over to the pool room. You know, we had a talented neighborhood, you know. We had a guy over there, you know, at that time they was writing prescriptions in Latin. We had a guy who could write Latin, you know. So he wrote me a prescription for some dolphins, and I went home. And I stayed there, and I felt good about 5 or 6 days. Then I went back to what we call people, places, and things now, because it was the fellas back then, you know. And I went back, you know, and my man stepped to me, and he said, listen, we ain't doing that no more. He said, we skin popping now. You know, and I started to skin pop. You see, but this was a new era for me. Like, it stepped up a piece. I was able to get up to the pool room and watch that scenario. Guys nodding over the 8-ball. You know, the guys were like still going to Layton's and Phil Cronfield's clean, man, you know, and guys would be nodding over the 8-ball and get to the 8-ball, he stop, go in the bathroom, vomit, come back, knock the 8-ball off and talk shit. I loved it. I loved it. I had to be down with that, so I got my opportunity, you know. So shortly after that, my man eased to me and he said, we ain't doing that no more. He said, we mainlining now. And that's where my story do a little flip. You know what I'm saying? Because we had some kids out there in Jamaica, Queens, who was called the Whiz Kids. These kids was taking money all over the country, man, with no guns. Going in bank getting money with no guns. You know, still going to Phil Cronfield's and Layton's and stuff like that, man, wearing them long shoes, them gaiters and stuff. And man, I wanted to be part of that, you know, but I couldn't steal nothing. You know, if it wasn't in the house, I couldn't steal it. You know, I went boosting one time, and I walked in a department store. You know how a book said filled with desperation? I walked in the department store like I had a neon sign on. You know, security guard walked over to me and said, "Don't you touch a goddamn thing." Yeah. I just had to look. It knew I was gonna steal something, try to steal something as soon as I walked in the door. You know, because I was had the desperation, you know, so therefore, that part of my addiction was very violent. You know, sticking up, taking off, being stuck up, being took off, you know, hurting and being hurt and things like that, man. And man, this just went on and on and on, man. You know, and we had a spot down on the corner. You know, dope fiends, most intellectual people you want to meet. Black Panthers had a spot down on the corner out there in Queens. So, dope fiends, we get the newspaper, read all the current events. And then we go down there and harass the hell out of the Black Panthers, and they would run us off the block. You know, but I would always go back to that stoop because right there in front of the stoop was the bus stop. I'd meet my wife and pick up the kids, you know. And then also on that stoop, fellas was coming home from the war. You know, and they was talking about commanding officers and things like that, you know, and generals and things, you know. And when I got to Narcotics Anonymous, man, you know, I started reflecting on my life. I said, damn, you know, I never was in the Army. You know, I said, I never was in Vietnam. I never did none of that. I said, but I damn sure was in the Army. You know, and I had a commanding officer. And I was a good soldier. You see, but I was in an army where you couldn't get no rank. So you couldn't get to a place where you have a say-so. It was all about what the general said do. You see, and the general would tell me when I could eat. The general would tell me when I could sleep. He'd tell me when I could go home. And if I was home sleep, he'd tell me to wake up. 2 o'clock in the morning, sub-degree weather, the general would walk in. Wake up. Wake up, we got work to do. He said, no, don't comb your hair. Said, nah. Just get the sweater. Carry the coat, because I got plans for the coat. You know? And I'd be out there in that sub-degree weather, you know, doing all kind of crazy shit, you know, dancing, doing that dope fiend shuffle around them garbage cans, man, waiting for something to die, trying to kill something, man, you know, and suffering, man. Suffering up and down New York Boulevard, doing all kind of wild stuff, man, you know. And I met this sister who said she knew somebody who was in the Rockefeller program. She said there was basketball and picnic area, swimming and horseback riding and things like that, you know. And I said, oh, wow, this sounds like a good chance to go AWOL on the general. You know, so I went up there and signed myself into the program. And they had an office on one side and the courthouse on the other, so you're supposed to sign yourself up, go across the street, and they would send you wherever you was going to go. So I went and I signed myself up, and I came out, and I didn't go across the street. I went home, you know, and at that time we were living in Brooklyn, my family and I, and I went home, and I walked in the house, and I looked at my wife, and I said, baby, I'm going away tomorrow. I'm going to get myself together. And she said, tomorrow? She said, why tomorrow? She said, why can't you go tonight? You know? You see, because she didn't know what was going to transpire between night and morning. You know, once the general came around. You know, and I had like a ball of chain, and it said pain written on it. And I drug it everywhere I went. You see, and I didn't know until I came in the rooms that my wife never stopped loving me. But she just despised the person that I had become. So, you know, the next morning, I went and got high, and I got up the next morning, I got off, and I went back to Queens, and they sent me over to the courthouse. And then they sent me up to the Bronx where Edgecombe was his reception center. And I stayed there a couple of weeks, and they sent me upstate to a facility. Needless to say, on the way up there was no horseback riding. There was no grass, and there was no picnic area. You know, just a big machine gun tower and an electric fence. You know, and I went in there, and guys used to tease me, and they said, man, we know you ain't gonna shoot no more heroin. He said, because you talk about it in your sleep. And from that day, about 1969, 1970 to this one, to today, I ain't never used no heroin, you know? That applause is premature, to say the least. Because when I came home, I used everything but heroin. You know, I came home, I stayed up there X amount of months, and I came home, you know, and we had 4 kids then. You know, my wife was on welfare, you know, and she was working, you know, and I got a job. Then I started selling reefer, and we started making money, man, you know, and we were trying to play catch up, you know. And I'm going down the street one day, and my man eased up on me. He said, we ain't doing that no more anyway. He said, man, we in the after-hour spots now. You know, and I went over to the after-hour spot. You know, and I walked in, man, and all the boys that was left was over there, and they was walking around like this here. Cocaine on the back of their hands, you know. Had them big coats on, them hats, big shoes, you know, talking, laughing, and lying. You know, so I said, man, I got to be part of this. So I had a job, you know, and with the job afforded me to get a chance to get one of them big-ass rabbit coats. So I got me a rabbit coat, and I had a big hat and a big fake gold watch. And some big shoes, and I was over in there with a 20 on the back of my hand, walking around talking about how I'm gonna come off, you know, when certain things happen, and this, you know, I'm gonna be rich and shit like that, you know. And I had like a 20, and if I sneezed, my whole neck bent over. You know? But I was down, I'm down, you know. You see, but early on, see, I didn't know, like, until I came in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous, not only was I hooked to the drugs, I was hooked to the whole thing, the whole lifestyle. You see, but my role models, I never took a good look at my role models. See, because if I had taken a good look at my role models, I would have seen that their long shoes had long turned over. You know, and them blood shop shirts had discolored, and the shark skin pants had patches in them. But I was blinded by the light. I was all hung up. You know, and so I'm over there in the spot, and one morning, I get a large, nice amount of cocaine. And I'm working. It's about 7:30 in the morning, I'm getting ready to go to work, and I get this package. So and I'm looking under the sink for some scarring powder, and I find a set of works. Now, I ain't shot nothing in about 8, 9 years since I come out of that Rockefeller program, you know, but I had somebody that was living with me, I call him active. See, I was sniffing cocaine, smoking reefer, drinking gin and tonic, but he was active. You know, because he was shooting his drugs, you know, and so I got the works, and I had the cocaine, and I put the works down, and I put the cocaine down, and I remember my sponsor telling me, know the nature of your disease and how it come at you, you know. See, because it seemed like at that instance, something walked in, or image walked in the bathroom. You know, what you got there, son? You know, and I like trembled like, you know. But like 7:30 that morning, I loaded up them works and fired that cocaine. 4:30 that afternoon, I came out the bathroom, my eyes was about this big. And I called my job, I said, I ain't coming in. See, but what I had done, I had re-enlisted. You see, and I had got me a new general. You see, but this general was unlike any general that's ever set foot on the planet Earth. See, because under the general heroin, not making him seem no better, I can remember certain things, like little furloughs. See? I can remember grocery shopping. See, I can remember taking my kids to the movies, going swimming, going to basketball games and things like that. This gentleman said, no. We don't do none of that shit. Say, all we do is march. This is all relentless marching and shit. You know, and I'd be out all hours of the night marching up and down the street, man, like I'm out of my goddamn mind, you know, and oh man, just doing all kind of stuff, man, doing things, man, like, you know, if you can identify, they make it be a bitch to think. Excuse my language. You know, for instance, Christmas Eve, you know, I'm in the house, and the general walk in. I'm saying, what's the matter with you? I said, I ain't got no money. He said, you ain't got no money? What's all these Christmas toys and shit in there? What's all this on it? He said, you see that talking baby doll and that fire engine and that bike? Gather all that up and come with me. And I be going out of the house, you know, talking about my wife, and he said, don't worry about your wife. I'm gonna give you a story. But it never failed. When the money was gone, the cocaine was gone, the general be gone. And I be in the house, you know how the books say rationalizing the most outrageous sort of nonsense? Telling my wife, I'm hungry, I don't know how that shit got out of here. You know, I wish I could find the person who came in here and took that stuff out of the house. And she said, well, I thought the last lie you told was the biggest lie I had ever heard. But you have managed to come in and top that. You know, and it just went on and on and on, man, you know, and I had heard about Narcotics Anonymous, and I went to a meeting, and I walked in and I saw the steps and the traditions. Me and the general went. And walked in, I saw the steps and the traditions. I said, man, this is relatively easy. What you think? He said, yeah. And I was going back and forth into the meeting, and I smoked a joint, you know, about 2 double bamboo papers. And I had a day-by-day book, you know, so I'd read the quote, and I'd go to the meeting, sit up front. I get the opportunity to share. I'd say the quote for the day. You know, and the general said, yeah, that shit was heavy. He said, come on, let's get out of here. You know, and I couldn't say in the meeting. You see, but I was getting the program from the neck up. You know, then somebody told me that, you know, the higher power won't change your condition until you change the condition of your heart. Yeah. And I went back out, and you see, and when you go in, the general find out you've been in here, he be pissed. And I went back out. I say I had days, I ain't had no days anyway, but I went back out. And General drugged me through the mud for 6 months. And I ended up at a sister's house. I had got my little vacation check, you know. And I had bought some cocaine, and I went in the house, and I gave her that precious money. You know, don't give me this back no matter what money. I had given her that money. And I went in the bathroom, and I stayed in there for about 3 hours. And the general came out. And the general said, give me my money. Give me all my money. You know, and she was a little sister. You know, and she stood up on the chair, and she started crying. She said, I ain't giving you a dime. You know, and I looked at her, and I started crying. You know, but what I felt that same feeling come over me, that feeling of surrender. You know, like they talk about the agony of defeat. You know, just like that guy on the Olympic commercial when he come out to shoot and bust his ass on the side of the mountain. You know, his shit is over. You know, when he talks about it in the How and Why book, in the second steps, they talk about when you believe the clear evidence, when you accept the clear evidence, then you open for suggestions. See, anybody could have gave that skill a suggestion, as you should not be a skill. You should be a cab driver or something like that, you know. And my whole life had told me, that it was over for me. You see, because I went to social using to extreme paranoia. And I had done some of the most shameful things, I thought, which they were. And I felt so bad about myself. So I called my job the next morning and I said, listen, I got a problem. They said, yeah, we know it. See, because on my job, everybody in my family had died at least 2-3 times. I had a catastrophe every week. I had them taking up a collection. I had leukemia one time, They said, well, we can't hold your job. They said, but we'll cover you for the rehab. And I went into the rehab, and the message came up. Narcotics Anonymous again, And this time when I was in the rehab, I was like a ball of clay. Not like the rock that came around the first time. The rock that was hard and nothing stayed on him, My recovery was like so unsteady. Anytime something came up, went out the window. But this time I was like a ball of clay that was pliable and could be shaped. Because I was beaten to that condition. I was ready to listen. I had accepted the clear evidence. It was over for me. The era was gone. And I went and I sat up, and I heard the message. And they said, when you get out of here, go to a meeting. Don't go home and kiss no babies. Go to a meeting. And I went to this meeting called Midtown Connection on 49th Street. And I sat up front. And they was giving out the white chips, poker chips. And the guy was saying, these white chips symbolizes the rooms. And he said it's like smooth on the inside and rough on the outside. And I wanted to put an analogy to that. And I started looking at NA as the fort, and I used to love those old frontier movies, and watch the guys be riding through the fort, riding through the wilderness, blazing trails, and the enemy be on them, and somebody be up on the walls, and they say, open the gates. There's a rider approaching, and he be riding, he be blazing, all you can see is dust, and he come in, and he be bringing, just like the newcomer, he be bringing that message. That's why we say the newcomer is the most important person in any meeting, because he tells us there ain't no better out there, and at that time when I came around, it was like 1, 2, 3 riders at a time coming in, but now I get up on the gates and I see wagon trains out there, that new general out there. And the wagons, they be out there and the wagons be circling. Be on fire, arrows be in the wagons and stuff like that, But the arrows be telling stories. The arrows be saying hopelessness and worthlessness, degradation, humiliation, despair, bewilderment, all kind of stories. And you hear somebody say, break for the fort. And the wagons straighten out and these wagons be coming, man, to be all kind of havoc. People be jumping off, trying to outrun the wagons, climbing the walls, man. Because there's a desperate situation out there. We say, open the gates. When they would come in, man, and the wagons roll in, and there's always somebody who's mortally wounded on the back of the gate, on the back of the wagon. And we in the rooms, like, we been around sometimes, and we get maybe just a little complacent. And we wondering what's going on out there. And so we all run over to them. Say, welcome. How is it out there? Never fails. The newcomer looks up and says, close the gates! Nothing's changed. And I remember when I came into the fort. I was inquisitive. And I said, who's an addict? I said, most of us don't have to ask that question. We already know. And you start telling me about people who put using in front of the welfare of their loved ones, who had to use at all costs. And I said, well, I'm at home. And he told me, he said, you need to do some things in the rooms. He said, you need to get a sponsor. You know, and I got me a sponsor. I chased him around for a long time. You know, the first time I asked him, first couple of times I asked him, he told me no. Then finally he told me yeah. You know, and then I used to go to this house. We lived a couple of blocks away from each other. You know, and I used to go to his house, and he used to have me up at night. We used to read the basic text back from cover to cover. You know, he used to tell me about the 24 principles that he had in his life, that he incorporated. And he said he didn't play with this here. He said, because listen, let me tell you something. If you're not working on living, you're working on dying. And he said, and if you ain't moving away from a drug, you're moving toward a drug. You know, and he used to always tell me things, you know, things that make you go, You know? And he used to tell me, man, he used to say, you know, and there's a lot of things that you're going to experience in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous. He said, but one of the most painful things that you can experience in the rooms is to think like a dope fiend and don't have dope. He said, things has got to change. You've got to change. You've got to change your thought patterns. You can't come in here and be a good pimp. See, you can't come in here and be a good dope dealer. See, you can't come in here and be a hoe. Because this is the spiritual program. And this program is geared for spiritual function. He said, and you can sit around and you can listen to all that stuff that people talking about. You don't have to work the step for the first year. The first year is yours. That's what they were saying when I was coming around. He said, well, look for them people now who've been saying that. He said, you know, when you read what we talk about, we're people who have a major problem with drugs, a major problem. And he said, if you go to the doctor with a major problem, he go and he look, examine you, and he go in the room and come back with a diagnosis. And he don't tell you, take this prescription and put it on the shelf because the first year is yours. He said, no, take this right away, but use the steps that I've given you. You know, and he started putting me into the program of Narcotics Anonymous, because I asked him, I said, man, well, how soon should I get into the steps? And he said, well, how soon do you want to feel better? You know, and I started to get into the steps, man, and you know, and I found out that powerlessness was my rightful position. I found out that I'm not powerless, you know, if I don't pick up. The only time I'm powerless is when I pick up. You see, and I used to talk to the general. And I used to blame the general for stuff. And the general said, listen, what are you blaming me for? He said, listen, don't you remember that you was a volunteer in this army? He said, and what do you think my job is? He said, my job was to humiliate you. My job was to make you feel like a worthless piece of shit. My job was to make your family and friends despise you. My job was for me to make you not even want to ever look in a mirror. My job was for me to make you walk around with your head low. He said, that's my job, and I do my job. I do it well. He said, so don't accuse me of making you doing something. He said, because that's not my crime. He said, if you want to accuse me of something, accuse me of fraud. That's my crime. I only gave you the illusion. He said, but let me tell you something, I ain't never had no power over you. All I did was call you. You gave me the power when you answered the call. See, and then my higher power tells me, when truth comes, falsehood has to perish. Because by its nature, falsehood is doomed to perish. He's not coming to rooms and y'all said that the lie is dead. Once a dope fiend, always a dope fiend is a myth. And then y'all start talking about that freedom. And I said, I want that freedom. You know what I'm saying? And I was sitting down and I was talking to my sponsor one day and he said, listen, let me tell you something. He said, there's one thing being locked up in Sing Sing. There's like one thing being locked up in San Bernardino or Alcatraz or any one of those penal institutions. He said, but you know what's worse? Being locked up and having keys in your pocket. He said, what Narcotics Anonymous gives you is the keys, the freedom. But you gotta use them, you gotta come in there and you have to go through stuff. He said, but one of the principles that you have to use in this program is enthusiasm. He said, but it's hard to be enthusiastic about the same old shit. He said, so something's gotta change in your life. So that's when you can offer your hope, strength, and experience to the newcomer. He said, because the last thing a newcomer needs to hear who comes in feeling miserable is a miserable qualification for somebody who's been here a while. No, it's got to be hope. I know I wouldn't have stayed if I heard y'all crying in here. If y'all didn't tell me about how it had gotten good. If y'all didn't tell me how the storm had passed over. If y'all didn't tell me how y'all weathered it. If y'all didn't tell me how y'all held on. If I didn't see y'all standing up. If I didn't see people coming in with GEDs and get law degrees. If I didn't see people doing the best that they could do. If I didn't see my life changing. I couldn't have stayed here. You see, but all these things, man, I saw manifest right in front of my face. This is a program that you cannot deny. You know, I often say that Narcotics Anonymous hasn't given me anything, but it's afforded me so many opportunities. One of the ones that I'm most grateful for is the opportunity to rewrite my obituary. You know, we have a spiritual advisor in New York that tells us to die before you die. You see, and that's what Narcotics Anonymous has given me the opportunity to kill off that old person that walked in here 11 years ago. It's given me the opportunity to chip away at some of those character defects. It's given me the opportunity to stand. My wife used to tell me, you know, I think you're grown a couple of inches taller. Because I could walk around with my head up instead of holding my head down. And it was all because of Narcotics Anonymous. I remember when I was in the rehab and I used to close my eyes and I used to cry because it was so painful to remember. The tape would come on and I would see my kid's face saying, Daddy, please don't leave with all the money. We're hungry. I see my daughter say, I need to know about little girl things. My kids would say, my boys would say, Daddy, we need to know about little boys things. I need to learn how to fight. I need to know, I want to go to a basketball game. And I tell them, you know, hey, I know, and I love you, but you see, what I got here in this Clean bag, this powder, and this aluminum foil, it's just a little bit stronger than the love that you got for me. And then, you know, when I was in the rehab, I'd be so full of shame. You know, like I used to ask for medication for pain. It wasn't no physical pain. But by coming in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and getting into service and getting out of myself, I began to close my eyes and remember something just a little bit different. I can remember somebody maybe that I said something nice to. I can remember somebody saying, you know, what you said to me helped me out a lot. I can remember hugging a newcomer. And when I closed my eyes, there wasn't the painful things, wasn't the first thing that came up. I had some new tapes. So I'm telling you, if you're new and you feel like shit, be thankful. Because that's the feeling that brought me into Narcotics Anonymous. I didn't come into Narcotics Anonymous because I felt good. I felt like shit when I walked in here. I remember being in the hospital, And I had interveners stuck all in my neck. And it seemed like the nurse was just jabbing me and sticking me carelessly, treating me like I was inhuman. And I was saying, man, this woman, man, treating me like I ain't nothing. But what it was, the reality was, is what I felt about me. I felt like nothing. I had sunk so low, man, that I felt I deserved what she was doing to me. You know, but narcotics, narcotics anonymous just open up the doors, you know. And I'm talking about the opportunities, man. We have the opportunities to be the best of parents, the best of mothers, the best of fathers, and Lord knows our children need us. You know, we have the opportunity to rid our communities of the ills that plague us just as much as the drugs. One that's most prevalent is racial hatred. We have the opportunity. Why am I speaking on that? Because our common welfare should come first. I'm talking about the ties that bind us together always should be one stronger than the ones that would tear us apart. I'm talking about my higher power says, "O mankind, indeed we have created you from a single pair, male and female, and divided you into nations so you know one another, not that you would despise one another." You know, and for someone to sit in a room with somebody and close their eyes and listen to the qualification and feel the pain and identify, and then open their eyes and despise them because of the color of the skin is not a spiritual principle. You know, because when we was all in the same army, and we all danced to the same tune, it was no different. When the general called, we all stood at attention. He didn't care. Oh, Portland, this has been beyond my wildest dreams. You know, I never thought for a moment when I came into Narcotics Anonymous, I can come here asking to be no speaker. Let me say something. I had nothing to say. You know, and I'm so grateful, you see, because this is the only place where my higher power can take a Dolphin story and make it worthy of honorable mention. This is the only place where my higher power can take a Dolphin story and make it inspirational to another Dolphin. You know, and use it as a vehicle for them to get their lives together. You know, this is beautiful, man. This is beautiful. We can't let nothing come between us. You know, I love Narcotics Anonymous with all my heart and soul, man. You know, Narcotics Anonymous has given me so much back. You know, it has allowed me to do things, man, beyond my wildest imagination. Here I am, I stand before you, I'm a dean of students. A Dolphin. You know, someone whose kids, man, I had no relationship for years and years and years, no relationship with my kids. Now I got 900 kids. You come around me, hug me, call me daddy. You know, I had a child out of wedlock when I was doing active addiction, and I hadn't seen her. You know, and I ran into a mother on the train, you know, not so long ago. And that's what I'm saying. Higher power puts things back into your life when he thinks you're ready for it. You see, because I wasn't ready to be no father at that time, and I had big resentments with this woman because she had a child, you know. But, you know, just last week, the child called me. You know, we're going to get together and have dinner and things like that, you know, like she's in high school now and things like that, you know. But she didn't call me and say she hate me. You know what I'm saying? but I'm ready to make any kind of amends to her that I can. You know, but I'm saying this, you know, in time, to give time. That's what the steps is for, and it's particularly for the newcomer. Don't come in here on step 9. Don't come in here go on running back, making amends, because in the beginning, sorry is just a sorry word. You know, you might go back and talk about I'm sorry and say some stuff that get you jammed. You know, I know somebody who did a mini knife. He went home and told his wife some stuff. You know, they said, you know, either to harm yourself or others, you know. He went home and told his wife some stuff she didn't know about. So I said, yeah, well, where you going now? He said, well, I'm going down here to the men's shelter and see if I can find some place to stay. You know, we need guidance, proper guidance, you know, and that's why we say get a sponsor who has a sponsor, NNA. You know, and my sponsor told me, he said, you have to do the best that you can to become the best you can, because you are a potential sponsor. You know, and you have to give up the pure. He said anything other than Narcotics Anonymous is cut. You know, and the newcomer don't deserve no cut. This is the program. And I was out there, and I said, cop, I used to hate to see that white shit circle in the bottom of the cooker. Because I know I had mostly cut. You know, I wanted the pure. You know, and that's what we have to give the newcomers. You know, and again, you know, I just want to say, you know, if you're new, hold on. Hang on, you know. You got to pay some dues. When I came into Narcotics Anonymous, I thought I had gotten away, and my sponsor was telling me, he said, no, this ain't no sanctuary. You know, and then I looked back and I said, man, it wouldn't be fair. He said, for me to heap all the hurt that I heaped on people, all the people that I hurt for all those years who didn't volunteer, and then come in the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous and get away scot-free. He said, that wouldn't be fair. See, so I got to feel some of the things that they felt, and I believe me, I've become a victim. I've become a victim since I stopped using, you know, and I felt a lot of things that people have felt, things that I inflicted on them, you know, and I felt the hurt, and I felt the pain that they felt, but I've been able to say I'm sorry, you know, and I'm saying for newcomers, you come in and work the steps properly from 1 to 9. But the time you get to 9, you'll talk, act, and think differently. At least you should anyway. You know, because my sponsor told me that the steps are geared to elevate your consciousness. Not that you feel better than somebody else, but you don't gravitate around the bullshit. You know? You know, and I can't thank you enough, Portland, Pat, and Charlie, for calling me and asking me to come to Portland. Again, I say, I'll be doggone. I never thought I'd be in Oregon. Love and respect. Thank you for letting me share.